Where did the Legion come from? What's the deal with their brutal ideology? And maybe crucially, what are its weaknesses?
Yeah.
Because it feels like this anachronistic power carved out of chaos must have some cracks, right?
Absolutely. That's the core of it, isn't it? It's this massive paradox. You have this society deliberately using ancient, almost primitive ideals, but wielding them with this terrifyingly modern totalitarian kind of control. So we'll dig into the what, definitely, but also the how, and maybe most importantly, the why. Why did it rise so fast, so brutally? And what does that foundation tell us about where it might be heading? Its ultimate fate, maybe.
Okay, so let's set the scene first, because you can't really understand the Legion without understanding the world it crawled out of. The Mojave Wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just, a desert. It's this huge, unforgiving scar across Nevada, Utah, Arizona. Picture it. Crumbling highways just vanishing into dust, ghost towns barely standing, skeletons of old buildings.
The real graveyard of the old world.
Exactly. It's harsh, really harsh. Water's like gold. Every day is a struggle against, well, everything.
Yeah.
Mutated creatures stalking around irradiated zones.
Not exactly paradise.
Not even close. You've got these scattered little settlements just clinging to life. And then there are all these tribal factions constantly fighting each other over scraps, old grudges, territory. It's fragmented. It's scarce. It's chaotic. Survival's the main game and the future.
Yeah.
Pretty bleak for most people out there.
And that's the perfect backdrop for why the Legion seems so alien, so stark. Into this mess, this landscape of total disarray where even small groups struggle to keep it together, something completely different pops up.
Yeah.
It's not just another raider gang, not some loose alliance of tribes. This is organized, ruthlessly efficient, and just unbelievably brutal. It feels like it defies the natural chaos of the wasteland.
It's a military machine.
Yeah.
Built on cruelty, yeah, but also this chilling discipline.
That's the core of it, the contradiction, Caesar's Legion. As our sources mention, it's deliberately modeled on ancient imperial Rome.
You see it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
The symbols, the red and black, the Latin phrases they bark out, the centurions, the legionaries, it's all incredibly deliberate.
Meticulously crafted. And you can't argue with its effectiveness, however horrifying. It expanded incredibly fast, conquered huge territories east of the Colorado River. We're talking big chunks of Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado.
Just swallowed them up.
Pretty much. Brought all these scattered, warring tribal lands under one single iron rule. Built an empire, basically.
And the contrast is just, it's jarring. Like you said, you have these tribal roots, the people they conquered first, but they're hammered into shape, forced into this disciplined structure that mimics an ancient empire.
Yeah, this empire of tribals, as some sources put it, built on these primitive but also ancient ideals. And it works. It dominates through just raw, ruthless force and a complete rejection of pre-war ideas, pre-war morality. It's built for conquest, for control, period.
So, okay, given this Roman Empire rising from the literal dust and ashes of America, the big question for this deep dive has to be how? How did something so seemingly backward yet so brutally effective climb out of that chaos so fast?
What's the secret ingredient to its dark success?
Right. And on the flip side, what are the weaknesses?
Yeah.
The flaws. Because something built like this, it feels like it has to have vulnerabilities hidden inside, things that could eventually tear it down.
And that's where it gets really interesting, because those vulnerabilities are woven right into its fabric, starting at the very top.
Yeah, let's get into that. Because the architect of all of this, the man they call Caesar, his origin story is maybe the most shocking part. It's this huge paradox.
It really is. The sources are clear on this. The leader of this hyper-militaristic totalitarian force wasn't born a warlord. He wasn't some tribal chieftain who got ambitious.
Yeah, he was Edward Sallow, an educated man, an anthropologist, and a linguist. Can you wrap your head around that?
It's the ultimate hook, isn't it? Born in 2226 in the Boneyard, that's old Los Angeles, he started life as a citizen of the New California Republic, the NCR, the very people the Legion wants to destroy.
The irony is thick enough to cut with a rusty knife.
And it gets thicker. He was raised, protected even, by the followers of the apocalypse.
The humanitarians,
Yeah.
the scholars preserving knowledge.
Exactly. The group dedicated to knowledge, healing, science, understanding the past. They stand for literally everything the Legion opposes. Sallow's early life was about learning, about intellectual curiosity, rooted in compassion, scientific method, a universe away from the brutal dictatorship, and, frankly, the anti-intellectualism he'd later enforce.
It's not just a change. It's a complete inversion. It wasn't some brood rising up. It was a scholar's descent into, well, into Caesar.
So what could possibly trigger such a transformation? What crucible could forge a dictator from a humanitarian scholar?
The sources point to one pivotal moment, the turning point. It happened in 2246. Salo was young, just 20. He goes on this expedition east towards the Grand Canyon.
Right, and he wasn't alone.
No, he had a fellow follower with him, a guy named Bill Calhoun, and also, crucially, a Mormon missionary named Joshua Graham. Remember that name? Graham becomes incredibly important later, often called the Burned Man.
We'll definitely come back to him.
Their mission, purely academic, classic follower stuff. Go out, study isolated tribal dialects, try to understand and preserve cultures. Benign, right?
Seems harmless enough, but this is the wasteland. Nothing stays harmless for long.
Exactly. While they're out there doing their research, they get captured. Taken by the Blackfoot tribe.
And the Blackfoot were in deep trouble.
Deep trouble. They were stuck in this brutal war against 7 other tribes, outnumbered, basically getting hammered.
Yeah.
Salo, the anthropologist, uses his skills. He observes, he analyzes, and he quickly figures out the Blackfoot are facing annihilation, like total destruction.
It wasn't just being held hostage. He saw a whole people about to be wiped out.
And this is the moment. This is where Edward Salo makes a choice. A cold, calculated, absolutely ruthless choice that changes everything. Forget being a hostage. Forget waiting for rescue. He sees a chance, not just to survive, but maybe to control.
And Calhoun, the other follower.
Calhoun objected, strongly. He wanted to stick to their principles, their humanitarian ideals. But Salo overruled him. He went to Blackfoot elders and made them an offer they couldn't refuse. He started teaching them modern warfare.
Weaponizing his knowledge.
Totally. We're talking proper shooting techniques, how to reload efficiently, how to make explosives from scavenged junk, small unit tactics, flanking, coordinated attacks, ambushes, all the stuff he knew from his NCR background from his studies.
He basically took this struggling, primitive tribe
and turned them into a disciplined, deadly fighting force. He weaponized his intellect in the most brutal way possible.
And this wasn't just theory. He put it into practice immediately. This is where the concept of total warfare really emerges, something these tribes hadn't experienced before.
Right. Salo, now basically leading them, targeted the Ridgers first. They were the weakest enemy tribe. He used that classic Roman tactic. Divide et impera. Divide and conquer. Isolate them, hit them hard with his newly effective warriors.
And the Ridgers fought back, presumably. They didn't just roll over.
They refused to surrender. Defiant. Maybe they didn't understand the kind of force they were up against now.
And Salo's response?
This was the definitive break. No mercy. He ordered the massacre of everyone. Every man, woman, and child. No exceptions.
Total annihilation.
The sources describe the aftermath at the Ridgers village. The piles of bodies. It shocked even the Blackfoot warriors, who were used to raids and skirmishes. This was different. This was systematic extermination, a deliberate message.
Power through absolute terror.
It was Salo, completely shedding his past, embracing extreme violence as his primary tool. And it worked. The other nearby tribes, the Kaibabs and Fredonians, they saw what happened to the Ridgers. They surrendered immediately, chose subjugation over being wiped out.
So behind this horrific violence, what was Salo's larger goal? What was the vision driving this?
He came to a conclusion, maybe drawing on his anthropological background again. He saw this endless, grinding, tribal warfare, these raids, retaliations, feuds as the root problem. The reason the region was so unstable, why it couldn't recover or build anything lasting.
Constant conflict keeps everyone weak.
Exactly. So his solution was radical, absolute, erase those tribal identities completely, just wipe the slate clean, replace them all with a single unified culture, a monolithic culture, as he put it.
Forge a new identity from the ashes of the old ones.
And this is where the Roman thing comes in, the blueprint. It's such a bizarre, fascinating detail. Somewhere along the way, maybe during his travels, maybe in some ruin, Salo found books. Pre-war books about ancient Rome.
Including Julius Caesar's own writings.
Yeah. Commentary to Bella Gallico, Caesar's account of conquering Gaul. And Salo didn't just read it for fun. He used it, like literally, as a practical manual.
Yeah.
A step-by-step guide for building his own empire.
That's incredible.
So in 2247, he does it. He takes the name, crowns himself Caesar, declares himself leader of this new thing, the Legion, deliberately structured like ancient Rome, and Joshua Graham, his fellow captive.
He becomes the first legate, the Malpais legate, his top military commander.
There's a real strategic calculation behind choosing Rome, too. It wasn't random.
Right. Caesar knew, as the sources say, that Roman culture was completely foreign, alien to the tribes he was conquering.
He was like adopting the identity of a rival tribe or even trying to revive some aspect of pre-war America. This was something totally new, imposing, detached from their old squabbles, an absolute authority descending upon them.
And for Caesar himself, maybe the original Rome, the historical Julius Caesar, they were just templates, tools to be adapted for his own grander post-apocalyptic project.
Seems like it. A way to forge unity through conquest and a forced alien identity.
Okay, so he's got his legion, his legate, his Roman blueprint. What's the ideology? What's the justification he offers for all this brutality?
He frames it grandly, of course. He argues, maybe even believes, that he's bringing a new Pax Romana, a Roman peace to the wasteland.
Peace through tyranny.
Pretty much. He claims he's integrating these conquered cultures, creating long-term stability, building institutions, bringing prosperity. Eventually, peace. It's the classic ends justify the means argument, taken to an absolute extreme.
A chilling rationale for atrocity.
The Legion itself is designed as this nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, completely homogenous culture, stability and efficiency above all else, individual suffering, irrelevant to the grand plan.
And underlying this is a core philosophy, right? Something about usefulness.
Exactly. Utilitarianism cranked up to 11. Caesar explicitly states it. Utility to the state is the highest virtue. Individuals, they have no value beyond their usefulness.
That's incredibly dehumanizing.
It applies to everyone, from the lowest slave right up to the legates, even Caesar himself, theoretically. You're a tool, a pawn on his chessboard. Your only worth is how you serve the legion's goals. Individual rights, feelings, aspirations, meaningless.
Just cogs in the machine.
It dictates everything. How people are bred, how they're educated, what roles they fill. It's all about maximizing military power and societal efficiency. No room for deviation.
And he even wraps this in like high-minded philosophy. I remember reading something about Hegel.
Yeah, it's wild. He uses the Hegelian dialectic to frame his conflict with the NCR.
Yeah.
Thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Right, the clash of ideas leading to a higher form.
So Caesar sees the NCR with its democracy, its bureaucracy, what he calls its corruption and inefficiency as the thesis. His legion, disciplined, unified, ruthless, is the antithesis.
And the inevitable clash between them
will result in a synthesis, a new superior state. A centralized dictatorship, basically, that takes the strength of the Legion and imposes it on the NCR's territory, creating this highly efficient superstate that can actually protect its citizens and bring real order.
Wow, so he sees himself as...
He literally compares himself to Julius Caesar returning from Gaul to clean up the corrupt Roman Senate, which in his mind is the NCR government.
So he's not just a brute, he's a philosophical tyrant, using intellectual concepts to justify his conquest.
Exactly. But let's peel back the philosophy and look at the reality on the ground, the pillars of Legion control. Because it's horrifying. First up, slavery.
Foundational, right. Not just a side effect.
Absolutely foundational. It's baked into the entire social structure. They even have categories. Disposables, low-value captives, used for hard labor, suicide missions, walking through minefields, basically expendable bodies.
Grimm and the others.
Profiteers. Slaves who show some skill. Artisans, maybe mechanics, people who can contribute more sustainably to the Legion's logistics or infrastructure. They get slightly better treatment, but they're still slaves. Property.
And there was something particularly disturbing about priestesses.
Yeah, this is insidious. They take children of slaves, especially girls, and raise them as priestesses. But it's not about spirituality. They're used for religious manipulation, to legitimize Caesar's rule, and especially to push population growth campaigns in conquered areas like Arizona and New Mexico.
Using religion as another tool of control and social engineering.
Totally. And remember, slaves have zero rights. None. They get the Legion's bull symbol tattooed on their backs. A brand. Permanent mark of ownership, lost identity.
Just brutal. And what about women who aren't slaves? What's their role?
It's severe misogyny, codified into law. Women are strictly breeders and mothers. That's it. Forbidden from fighting, forbidden from politics, forbidden from any position of authority, really.
Just reduced to reproduction.
It's a state policy. Maximize breeding. Grow the population for the army. Caesar sets quotas for having children. Legionaries are told to mount their women. That's the phrase used as a duty. Reproduction is a service to the state, completely stripped of personal choice or affection.
It's a society built on denying individuality at every level.
Which brings us to another contradiction, considering Caesar's background. Their rejection of modernity.
Right, the anti-technology, anti-medicine stance.
Yeah, they actively shun modern medicine, advanced tech, even things like chems or alcohol. They rely on primitive tribal remedies, traditional methods.
Which is incredibly ironic, given that Caesar himself used his knowledge of modern tactics and tech to start the whole thing.
It's a massive reversal. He used guns, explosives, strategy, the very things he now restricts or forbids for his subjects.
So why do it? What's the strategic reason for rejecting useful tools?
Control. It's always control. It's about stripping away pre-war identities from the tribes they conquer, erasing their past, making them reliant only on the legion, on its strong traditional values, on Caesar. Eliminate those links to the old world. You eliminate competing loyalties. You create that homogenous culture he wants.
Sever the connection to anything outside the legion.
They might scavenge basic gear, sure, strip weapons off enemies, but advanced stuff, complex tech, sophisticated medicine, that's seen as dangerous, corrupting, creates weakness, dependency. It has to be simple, brutal, controlled.
A system built on strength through forced ignorance, almost.
Pretty much. But even an empire built on such rigid control, such brutality, it's not unbreakable. There are cracks, big ones. And the story of the Burn Man really exposes them. It starts with the first battle of Hoover Dam.
Ah, yes, the big showdown, 2277.
The Legion, led by Joshua Graham, remember him, the first legate, Caesar's right-hand man, they make their big push, attack the NCR at Hoover Dam. This was supposed to be their triumphant crossing of the Colorado.
Their Rubicon moment, as Caesar saw it.
But it went disastrously wrong for them. Graham's legionaries, fierce as they were, got completely outsmarted by the NCR commander, Chief Hanlon.
Hanlon was a sharp strategist.
He laid a brilliant trap, used Boulder City as bait, lured the Legion in, then ambushed them, collapsed tunnels. The NCR troops, especially the sharpshooters, inflicted massive casualties. The Legion was routed, forced back across the river in disgrace.
A huge, humiliating defeat. And for Caesar, failure is not an option.
Not even remotely. He was enraged. This wasn't just a lost battle. It was a stain on the Legion's honor, a sign of weakness. Graham's failure was seen as unforgivable, a betrayal of the Legion's core principle, victory at all costs.
Caesar's response was legendary in its cruelty.
Horrific.
Yeah.
He made an example of Graham, an unforgettable, terrifying example. Joshua Graham was covered in pitch, set on fire, burned alive.
Still alive.
Still alive, and then, while still burning, thrown into the Grand Canyon.
My God.
That's how he became the Burn Man. A symbol of Caesar's absolute intolerance for failure. A warning to every single person in the Legion.
The price of failure is unimaginable agony and death. There are no second chances.
None. So, with Graham gone, presumed dead, anyway, Caesar needed a new top general. Someone equally terrifying, if not more so. Enter Legate Lanius.
The monster of the East.
That's the name he earned. Known across the entire Legion territory, feared by everyone. He becomes the new face of the Legion's military might.
And he lives up to the name, right? Pure brutality.
Absolutely. Unparalleled reputation for savagery, cold efficiency on the battlefield. He wears that distinctive, terrifying mask, supposedly made from the face of an enemy chieftain he killed himself, a walking symbol of the Legion's ruthlessness.
The embodiment of their martial strength.
He becomes Caesar's new supreme military commander, the hammer that crushes everything in their path.
And his backstory fits the Legion mold perfectly, doesn't it? Even as a kid.
Yeah, the sources say even as a child in his original tribe, he killed 15 of his own warriors in some savage outburst. He was subdued, but instead of being killed.
The Legion saw potential. They saw that raw aggression and decided to harness it.
Exactly. They indoctrinated him, honed his brutality into a disciplined weapon. He climbed the ranks fast, became Caesar's greatest warrior. It shows how the Legion actively looks for that savagery, then shapes it to serve the state. Lanius is the Legion's raw power made manifest.
But even with monsters like Lanius enforcing his will, Caesar himself isn't invincible. There's that massive irony, isn't there? The man who preaches strength rejects modern medicine.
He's dying. He has a brain tumor, likely a glioblastoma, which is incredibly aggressive, usually fatal. This mortal weakness, hidden away, completely undermines his whole image. The God King is vulnerable, human.
And the hypocrisy is staggering.
Totally. He forbids advanced medicine for his followers, pushes primitive cures, but secretly. He's relying on a sophisticated pre-war autodoc to try and save himself. He's breaking his own rules, contradicting his core ideology just to survive.
It exposes the fragility of the whole system, doesn't it? A system built entirely on the will, the image, the life of one man. His mortality is the Legion's Achilles heel.
You'd think this rigid, monolithic empire would be stable, but people are already predicting its collapse. Figures like Mr. House seem convinced that once Caesar dies, the Legion will just tear itself apart. Infighting, chaos.
Why? Because Lennius can't hold it together.
That seems to be the consensus. Lennius is a terrifying warrior, sure, an effective general in battle, but a leader, a unifier, probably not. He doesn't have Caesar's charisma, his manipulative intelligence, his strategic vision. Can he keep all those conquered tribes, all those ambitious centurions, in line just through fear?
He's a hammer, not a chess player.
Exactly. It shows the danger of centralizing everything in one person without a real succession plan. Loyalty is to Caesar, maybe not to the Legion itself, not in the same way.
And adding another layer of instability, Joshua Graham, he didn't actually die.
He survived. Somehow, miraculously, he survived being burned alive and thrown into the Grand Canyon. And he's still out there. He even says Caesar would never admit this openly, but he knows I'm alive. I've killed enough of his frumentarian assassins.
Wow. So Caesar's ultimate example of punishment failed. And the victim is out there, a living symbol of defiance, actively killing Caesar's agents.
It shows Caesar's grip isn't absolute, and it probably fuels dissent, this idea of the fraud of Caesar.
Meaning that people within, or those who've escaped, don't buy the whole divine Roman Emperor act.
Right. People like Graham, having seen behind the curtain, view Caesar's Roman identity, his claims of divine right, as just cynical manipulation, a useful lie.
A fraud who built an empire on brutality and stolen history?
Graham definitely sees it that way. And you have to wonder how many others, maybe even high-ranking legionaries, secretly see the divinity as just, a simple act of cunning, not real authority. This internal doubt questioning the very foundation, combined with Caesar's failing health, it makes the whole edifice look increasingly shaky.
A house of cards built on fear and a carefully constructed myth.
So, wrapping this up, what's the final verdict on Caesar's Legion? It's fascinating to look at the developer insights, the inspirations, figures like Kurtz from Heart of Darkness.
The educated man descending into savagery in the wilderness.
Exactly. That parallel is chilling. An intelligent person, removed from civilization's constraints, embracing extreme brutality, becoming a godlike figure to the natives. And there are echoes of real-world figures, too, like the warlord Charles Taylor.
Educated individuals using extreme violence to grab and hold on to power.
It underlines the point that despite all Caesar's philosophical justifications, his talk of a Pax Romana, his Hegelian dialectics, at the end of the day, he's a warlord. A highly intelligent, terrifyingly effective warlord, but a warlord nonetheless.
The intellect is just another weapon in his arsenal, a tool to rationalize and legitimize conquest and subjugation.
So Caesar's Legion, it's unique, it's complex, it's undeniably terrifying. It represents this monstrous attempt to impose order on chaos.
But an order built entirely on crushing individuality, erasing history, suppressing any dissent, all through extreme systematic violence and total control.
And the contradictions are everywhere. The intellectual founder who rejects intellect. The quest for peace through total war. The supposed strength of this monolithic empire that's actually incredibly fragile, totally dependent on one single dying man.
It's built to conquer, perhaps, but maybe not built to last, especially without its keystone.
Which leaves us with that big unsettling question, doesn't it? For all its horror, does the Legion actually offer a path, maybe the only path, to some kind of stability in the wasteland, even if it's deeply unethical?
Or is it just doomed, destined to collapse under its own contradictions, its own brutality, the moment its creator is gone? What does it all say about that human drive for order and the dark, dark places people will go to achieve it?
Something to definitely think about. A lot to chew on there from this deep dive.